The regular meeting of the San Francisco Ethics Commission is called to order. Call the roll. Commissioner Keene. Here. And I want Commissioner Andrews. Here. Commissioner Herr has said he would be here, and seeing we have a quorum, we're going to start. He said he'll be maybe a few minutes late. And Commissioner Hahn has been excused. And I guess as a first order of business is to welcome Mr. Keene as our newest commissioner, and hopefully you will find it interesting and enjoyable.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a great pleasure to be on this commission. I've followed your activities over the years, and I look forward to having a very fruitful and very interesting time serving with all of you.
All right. At this time, is there any public comment on either matters on the agenda or that are within the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission?
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. Stop the corporate rape of the public library. Don't give money to the Friends of the Library. Don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. I do have a graphic display. There it is. I hope you know that on September 19, the California Fair Political Practices Commission in Sacramento found that City Librarian Luis Herrera was guilty of 3 years of violations for failure to report gifts. These are laws that are designed to prevent those who are supposed to represent the public from representing the interests of those who give them money instead. In order for the society to protect itself, City Librarian Luis Herrera had to sign every other year under penalty of perjury that he attended ethics trainings on reporting gifts. In order for the society to protect itself, the city librarian has to sign every year under penalty of perjury that he has taken sunshine training that includes the reporting of gifts. After that, city librarian signed under penalty of perjury that he had, quote, nothing to report, unquote, while he was receiving $65,000 per year from the Friends of the Library. These statements under penalty of perjury had no effect in inducing the city librarian to make the required disclosures. The reason for the signature under penalty of perjury is to make every violation willful and to create constructive knowledge of the regulations. Advice from the city attorney's office, from the library department accountants, from the controller's office, and from the lawyers for the private nonprofit providing the money all had no effect in inducing the city librarian to make the required disclosures. It goes without saying that oversight from the Ethics Commission had no effect. We don't have these laws regarding the disclosure of gifts because everyone hates Christmas. The laws are because the potential for conflict of interest exists, and so that we can have some notice of officials doing favors for the private wealth that is giving the gifts. We now know that in the 12 years that the Friends of the Library have raised money for the Branch Library Improvement Program, the Friends of the Library expended $53 million. The amount expended to benefit the library was $5.1 million, or 9.6% of that total. The Friends have no agreement with the city, but they do have an agreement with that city librarian, and he has now acknowledged that the quarterly reports that required under that agreement were in fact never done. That's the payoff for the gifts, is that this private entity gets to proceed without any accountability or oversight whatsoever. This is the trickle-down effect from the fact that you are on notice to the rest of the city that you regard enforcement as negative, and by implication, the lawbreakers as positive. Thank you.
And thank you. May the minutes reflect that Commissioner Herr arrived approximately 3 minutes into that statement. Thank you.
Members of the Ethics Commission, Ray Harris, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I was very interested in the end of the September 23rd meeting of this Ethics Commission. After Chair Hayon said, quote, there are no members of the public here, unquote, Commissioner Rennie said in part, quote, I hope the staff doesn't take the criticism to heart as it isn't what we feel who know what you're really doing, end quote. He then proceeded to characterize all of the public comment as, quote, accusations. This was followed by the statement, I think they were all unfounded comments. So every member of the public that appeared before this body on that date, Commissioner Rennie has just admitted he said everything they said was unfounded. And I've read you before this good government guide that says a quasi-judicial body has to have at least an appearance of being fair. And if you start out accepting everything they say is wrong, not fair. This was followed by a quote from, the Chair Hayon then said, quote, thank you, Commissioner Rennie, and I think we all heartily agree with what you said, unquote. I suppose I should be grateful that you were so candid about your opinion regarding public participation and comment at these meetings. I'm not. I think it shows the dismissive attitude you have toward public participation and disregard for any opinion other than your own. I find this, for one, totally unsurprising. As Mr. Chafee mentioned earlier, we made dozens of attempts to get the Library Commission to account for all the money, the $53 million he spoke about, and where it went, and to get Mr. Herrera, the city librarian, to provide documents, and he withheld those documents for 2 years, has been found in multiple violations of the Sunshine Ordinance, and has been referred both to this Ethics Commission and to the Board of Supervisors. Of course, they don't want to deal with it because then comes up the issue that he filed year after year after year under penalty of perjury statements that he received nothing of value. He has now had to subsequently refile those statements, and it shows that he's gotten thousands of dollars of gifts. And in return, what he did was turned a blind eye, let them raise and expend $53 million in the name of the San Francisco Public Library and the citizens of this city without making any effort to look out after the interests of the library. And repeatedly, he has come before the Library Commission and by extension the public and lied about the fact that he knew where this money was going when in fact he could not produce any documents to substantiate that money. He was getting what he wanted, and in return, he looked the other way. That's a matter of public record.
There being no other members of the public who wish to comment, I'll turn to item 3 on the agenda, which is a discussion and possible action on an annual report for fiscal year 2012-2013.
So we began this discussion at the last commission meeting. There were several suggestions made. We've incorporated almost all of them. I haven't gotten any additional feedback in the intervening time from commissioners or anyone else. I did just bring this up with Chairperson Hayon today. She didn't have anything else to add either and suggested we move it forward.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments or additions?
Mr. Chair, I would just ask that I know the Commission has a rule that abstentions are not allowed, that you have to vote either up or down. In light of the fact that this is my first appearance and I haven't been able to go through all of this, I would ask that you allow me to recuse myself from voting on a matter like this because there's some fairly substantive issues in it that I simply wouldn't feel comfortable.
Okay, when we come to voting, I will ask the other commissioners if they agree that you should be recused. There are sufficient for the quorum without your vote. But if I have some comments which are not substantive, and I apologize for not having sort of alerted you, but they're really just, if you turn to page 5, under the third bullet point from the bottom, the last line of it, I think, has the word handled twice. It says matter will now be handled their own regulation.
So we should delete that second?
Just delete that handle.
Okay.
On page number 6, the second line at the top, I think that's supposed to be from rather than form, F-O-R-M. I think it's supposed to be F-R-O-M.
Okay.
So I just correct that typo. And then on page number 14, in the second paragraph under investigations and enforcement, it now reads the Ethics Commission has the authority to investigate complaints that allege violation of certain state and local laws that related to. I think the tense is wrong. It should either be are related to or just say that relate to.
And we'll change it to relate.
Either way.
Yeah, okay.
Other than that, I appreciate the work that the staff has done preparing that report. Any public comment on the report?
Commissioners, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government, and I'd like to make something very clear not only to the commissioners but to the members of the public who might be watching on SFG TV. When Mr. St. Croix says that he considered all of the input, I would like to stipulate that I believe that he considered the input from the commissioners and the staff. However, even though members of the public gave significant input at the last thing, I don't think that was even considered, let alone included. I know I myself, in writing and orally, gave such suggestions. After a review of this annual report, I feel you have confused activity with accomplishment. The report is filled with things done without any outcomes that I can find. In the introduction, it states, quote, "The Commission is pledged to a high degree of excellence in government accountability," end quote. An example has already been previously mentioned. City Librarian Luis Herrera was found guilty this year by the FPPC for failing to report gifts he received in multiple years. With absolutely no belief that this body would take any action, James Chafee, the prior speaker, took the matter to a state agency. Herrera, after multiple years of training in the Sunshine Ordinance, following multiple Sunshine Declarations, multiple years of training in ethics rules, multiple statements, all under penalty of perjury, that he took those trainings, then proceeded to year after year file annual statements with the FPPC, Form 700s, that all said he got nothing. And he did those under penalty of perjury. Now, his amended filings showed thousands of dollars of such gifts. The Library Commission most recently, in an illegally released statement, it was illegally produced, illegally revised, and illegally approved, then released a statement to the media from the Library Commission and Library Commission stationery. They did all of this out of the sight of the public, committing multiple violations, not only the Sunshine Ordinance, but the Brown Act, because they didn't have enough courage to talk about what they wanted to say in a public open meeting. So what they did is they went behind the public's back and they directed a city employee to commit an illegal act by issuing this statement to the San Francisco Bay Guardian, knowing full well, and then they came back and had the gall to say, oh, we didn't realize what we were doing was illegal, we retract the statement, after it had already been printed in the press. Now, either you have a bunch of morons who take this training and haven't got the faintest idea what's going on, or you have a bunch of people who take it and just don't give a damn what it says.
Mr. Hartz, may I ask you a question? You said that you provided the staff with some language that you wanted to be included in the annual report that they failed to include?
Yes, in my public testimony regarding the report at the last meeting, I gave a number of suggestions as far as what it is, but I heard another suggestions from other members of the public, and I looked to see if any of those were included, and not one was. This is like the Library Commission where they would do the minutes and we would say, what you wrote about what I said is wrong. In fact, it's completely opposite. And they would change everything they wanted changed about what they said, but wouldn't change a single thing that we said, even though what we said was incorrectly represented.
My recollection may be faulty because I'm getting old, but I don't recall that we specifically dealt with the annual report at the last. We did. Did we? And where have you looked at the minutes for the September 23rd meeting?
If you look on page 6 of the minutes.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's not that one. Page 7 of the minutes, under public comment. There is a 150-word summary. I would only suggest a few minor modifications for acceptance of this annual report, and I went on to list those.
All right. Thank you. Any comments that the commissioners have? Anyone want to make a motion concerning the draft San Francisco Ethics Commission annual report?
I move that we adopt the draft report that's been presented to us.
I second.
Now, you've heard Commissioner Keene ask to be recused and excused because of the fact that this is his first meeting and he hasn't had an opportunity to be familiar with the contents of this report and the actions that it refers to. Is anybody opposed to his request to be recused?
We actually have to do this as an official action.
Okay, so I'll have
So
that.
Commissioner would make a motion that he be recused.
All right.
Someone needs to second.
Mr. Chair, I asked to be recused from voting on this issue because it is my first meeting, and although I've read and looked over the materials, I don't feel that I've been privy to enough of the substantive give and take on it to make an informed decision at this point. And given the fact that the Commission doesn't have the procedure for abstention, I think recusal is the most appropriate thing for me to do.
In view of that request, any public comment?
First, we need a second.
I just want to raise a procedural question. I have no substantive objection to Mr. Keene's request, but I just want to make sure that the city attorney is comfortable that that is an appropriate basis for recusal.
I think it's fine given the circumstances here and given that there is a quorum without Commissioner Keene. I think it's fine.
Okay. I second the motion.
Any public comment?
Commissioners, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government, and I would like to thank Commissioner Keene for starting out on a good foot. I think that when a commission member approves minutes or any other document produced by a body, he or she is not just simply producing or voting on the fact that it be issued, but they are actually stipulating that they have reviewed and agree with the contents. Otherwise, you're going to get into situations where there could be something completely contrary to your beliefs in that report, and you'd be tacitly approving it, having not read it. So I think that the commissioner is well within his rights, and I commend him on that because without knowing what, it's like signing those Form 700s. If you're signing something and you don't know what's in it, or if you sign something you know what's in it and you know it's a lie, then it's a problem.
All right. All those in favor of allowing Commissioner Keene to be recused, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Reflect that 3-0.
Actually, it's 4-0. You have to vote on that.
And aye.
Now there's a motion on the floor.
All right. All right. There's the motion on the floor to adopt the draft report, which we have before us with the corrections the grammatical corrections that I pointed out, or the typos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's carried unanimously, 3-0. Turning to item number 4 on the agenda, discussion and possible action on the minutes of the Commission's meeting of September 23rd. Anybody have any suggested corrections or comments? Public comment?
Commissioners, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. Near the end of these minutes, you will see Chairperson Renee's comments, which I referenced earlier. I think the most egregious statement is, quote, he stated that they were all unfounded comments, and that was, end quote, and that was in reference to the public comments that were made earlier in the evening. This is closely followed by, quote, Chair Hayon agreed, unquote. When in the presence of the public, these members are silent. After the public leaves, however, they find the courage to speak out. I hope the staff realizes they are being damned with faint praise. Commissioners indicate support only when there's no one around to hear. So when we're here making our statements, they don't challenge us, and if they're statements about you, they don't challenge it when it can be heard by the members of the public. They wait till the members of the public leave, and then they screw up their courage and make the comments. And one thing I would like to point out, they tried to make it sound like it was the staff we're criticizing, and it is almost 100% Mr. St. Croix. And whatever things the staff does that I find objectionable are usually as a result of Mr. St. Croix's management and supervisory style. Commissioners, I hope the public realizes that they are being dismissed totally out of hand. Perhaps the reason that most or all of the comments are negative is that members of the public see nothing positive. Only those who really have a grievance have the stamina to bother to come to these meetings, and I'm the only member of the public that's here. Nobody bothers to come to this meeting because they have figured out very clearly from your actions and behaviors you don't give a shit what they think. And you just went ahead and said it. After a while, many just don't bother to attend. As Albert Einstein said, quote, the best definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome, end quote. This is politics. We all know it. You're appointed by different city agencies, and you are here to defend their interests. You have no real interest in defending the rights of the public. We can see that in your complete absence in the previous report of the Sunshine Ordinance and your responsibilities under the Sunshine Ordinance, and the fact that over these 13 years you failed to do anything to enforce it. In fact, I'd like to hear one member of this task force or this commission actually point out something in that annual report where you could point to it and say, I think we made a substantial improvement in the ethics of this city.
Do I hear a motion to adopt the minutes?
I move that we adopt the draft minutes as written.
Second.
Mr. Chair, on this, I'll vote on this. There's nothing really substantive here, and I've looked over the minutes, and I do not need to be recused on this.
All those in favor of adopting the minutes as written?
Aye.
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 They're adopted unanimously. Turning to item number 6.
I just have
5. Discussion of Executive Director's report.
two highlights. I'd point out after a very long time, we finally have filled the educator position. So last week, the new person started, and we're undergoing the training for that person as expeditiously as possible. Additionally, we did offer the open auditor position to someone who has accepted it, but it's going to be a few weeks before DHR processes that person, but we'll have someone else on board. Then next we have an open investigator position, so we'll start working on filling that. The other highlight is that we've finished with all of the various departments for the extension of the NetFile contract that handles all of our online filing, and that final approval is come through, I believe, just today, and there's 9 different agencies that have to sign off on it. So that contract's been extended for 5 years, which is a very good thing. That's it.
Yeah, on the under record request, John, you mentioned that there's an increase of public record requests. What do you account for that? Is that seasonal?
It's really hard to predict when they're going to come and when they're not.
Yeah.
We had one record request last week that took 2 staffers the better part of 3 days to fill in, and then we had a second, not massive, but a second record request last week, and in the previous weeks there were a few more. I can't say it's seasonal. Mm-hmm. It's just there are so many different motivating factors behind them.
Yep. Thank you.
Mr. St. Croix, what were the terms of the new NetFile deal comparable to the terms that we have had with them previously? Because I know we'd previously gotten a pretty good deal from them.
Yeah, it is. For the first time since we've had the contract, the actual dollar amount of the contract has increased. I think that NetFile has kind of held it down artificially low because San Francisco is really their anchor tenant. And the reality is, after 6 years, costs have increased. But we amortize the increases over the life of the contract, so it's easier to digest how much that will be. Additionally, we still have in place agreements that there's a certain amount of processing that they'll do to create platforms for us as we develop new needs. And again, this is the kind of thing they would normally charge other entities for. But San Francisco tends to be ahead in moving toward online filing of documents that other places don't. So once we have our system, for example, Form 700s up and running, that's a process where they can go and then market to others. So there's a good benefit for us and the people in this contract. It's a very good one.
Just think, one other comment that I had. I see under the revenues report we budgeted about $100,000 for the year, and I want to say that last year, if my memory may be off, we hit that goal and I think exceeded it by
by more than 25%.
Yeah, which I thought, which was great. So if you kind of divided that out by quarter, you would say it's $25,000, generally a quarter. And I see we have 9.
Yeah.
Is that comparable to what happens year over year, where you're a little slow going and then it builds up over time?
Yes. Our biggest quarter is always the first quarter of the calendar year, because a great many of the fines and not fines, fees and stuff that are due annually will come in that first quarter. So there's always a big bump there.
Okay.
Additionally, a lot of the late filings and everything that happened during election cycle, which we're in now, the election's in November. So processing late fees and late fines will happen after the election is over.
Thank you.
I also wanted to echo Commissioner Rennie and thank the staff and you, Mr. St. Croix, for the hard work reflected in the annual report, not just in putting it together, but in the actual work that was accomplished in the last fiscal year. So thank you.
Any public comment on the Executive Director's report?
Commissioners, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I'm only going to comment on Sections 7 and 10 of this report. The first section, number 7, discusses the filing of Form 700. Some focus needs to be placed on the fact that the filing of such reports are done under the penalty of perjury. After years and years of training, Luis Herrera, city librarian, failed to figure that out. He also didn't seem to understand that signing such a statement is perjury even when it is not done in front of a public official under oath. I have to believe that if someone as intelligent as Mr. Herrera doesn't understand those matters, there must be many more city employees who also don't understand, and potentially a lot of other violations. We're currently filing complaints with the FPPC against two members of the Library Commission who also accepted gifts the same as Mr. Herrera in similar amounts. In Section 10, it states, quote, due to the voluminous records involved in some of the requests, some staff have been sidetracked from regular duties, end quote. Under the Sunshine Ordinance and the California Public Records Act, responding to public records requests are among the regular duties of every city employee. This mistakenly represents this as something that they're being taken away from their duties to do this. It's part of their duties. Any city employee who is asked for a public record, it is a requirement and part of their job duties to provide a response. And putting it in this report in this way, saying that they're taken away from their regular duties to do this, is simply a ploy to treat those records requests as something other than what they are, which is a legitimate legal request from a citizen of San Francisco to a body holding control or supervision of a record and not getting it. And one of the things I have found from my own personal experience, after chasing Mr. Herrera for 2 solid years, going through the city attorney's office twice, a petition to the supervisor of records, he continued to withhold records, and those were the very records we used to find him in violation of the FPPC regulations. I didn't blame him. If I were Mr. Herrera, I wouldn't want those records out either. I'd lie about their existence, which he did. I'd say that they didn't exist when they did. And I'd even deny answering whether they did exist or not when the respondent or the requester had a legal document saying you should have it signed by the respondent.
Agenda item 6, items for future meetings. Do the commissioners have any suggestions as to items that they would like to see on the agenda for the meetings in November or subsequent thereto? Mr. Hartz is the only member of the public. Do you have public comment or suggestion of items that we ought to put on our agenda?
Yes, I most certainly do. Again, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I think that this body needs to acknowledge that in your charter it says that you are responsible to a degree for the Sunshine Ordinance and its implementation and enforcement. And yet in every single document I see coming out of this body, you just fail to address it at all. In the civil grand jury report, the sleeping watchdog, that was mentioned by the civil grand jury. And you simply dismiss that with the typical response to civil grand jury reports of, thank you very much for all of the time you put into this, how much we appreciate all this hard work, and then proceed to disagree with everything they say. Deny what they say it's wrong, say they don't understand, anything but accepting it. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. That's something Ken Blanchard said. And anybody, any organization, any individual, any group of people who cannot accept feedback and admit to the fact that occasionally they're not doing something they should be doing is willfully ignorant. And St. Thomas Aquinas said, willful ignorance of what one ought to know is a mortal sin. The Sunshine Ordinance Task Force hears dozens and dozens of cases each year. They send you maybe 3, 4, or 5, and you dismiss every one of them. You take the city side every single time. Only one time have you ever taken an action, and that was to recommend to the mayor that Jewel Gomez, president of the Library Commission, be removed. And he ignored you. So I guess I can't blame you either. I wouldn't want to take any action if I knew the only thing that I was going to get was somebody just saying, I'm not going to do it. You don't have any power. You don't have any control. People say, oh, the Sunshine Task Force doesn't, but I'll give them this. They at least listen to the citizens of this city, and when they find a good case, they issue a violation. I've got 19 of them myself. Just try to get them enforced. You can catch people in a blatant lie. And you know the most interesting thing about it? They never have the courage to show up and explain their own actions. They send some city employee who doesn't really know what's going on and say, here, you go on and you defend this illegal action. Poor Sue Blackman at the Library Commission, the secretary, she gets stuck defending the actions of Jewel Gomez and Luis Herrera because they haven't got the integrity to go before a body and say, the reason I did this is because of this. They send her there, and the last time I watched her, she was physically standing there shaking like a leaf because they were asking her questions she didn't have answers to.
I'm not sure that I know what the agenda item is that you want us to put on, but if you want to submit some specific agenda item for our consideration, we will certainly consider it.
I thought I made it clear. The agenda item would be to have an open public discussion at a Ethics Commission meeting about what you feel, this body feels, and its members feels about its obligations under the Sunshine Ordinance.
I think we spelled that out when we set the new regulations for hearing on sunshine complaints. But there are no further items?
Public comment.
Public comment on, well, I thought we had finished public comment, but
One more.
anybody want to move to adjourn, and then I will ask for public comment on that?
No, you don't need public comment on that, but agenda item 7 is general public comment.
All right, agenda item 7 is sort of the flip side of item number 2, which is public comment on matters appearing and not appearing on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission.
Members, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government, and as this meeting is only about 30 minutes long, I don't feel particularly impolite to use this second opportunity. You can act like I'm here just to be a pick on you and poor us and, all this other crap which you seem to want to present it as. But I've been watching open meetings in this city for the last 5 years, attending meetings of the Library Commission, the Police Commission, the Arts Commission, the Board of Supervisors, and the respect that people pay to the public as far as their ability to participate in meetings, to make public comment, and to obtain public records is ludicrous. And part of that responsibility falls with you. City employees know that if they want to withhold documents from the public because it's going to make them look bad, that nobody in this city, especially this commission, is going to do a thing about it. You're going to come up with some 150 reasons. In fact, Mr. St. Croix had to be defended in the Superior Court of California just recently by a lawsuit by Alan Grossman for withholding records about the Sunshine Ordinance, which clearly states that any communications between the city attorney's office and other bodies about public matters regarding open government issues cannot be hidden from the public under attorney-client privilege. The tentative ruling came out and agreed with that argument. And I think that the reason is because the city attorney, instead of being the kind of a person who expects city employees and departments to follow the law, wants to allow them to do whatever they want, and then wants to advise those bodies how to avoid giving documents to the public which would expose it. Like I said, 2 solid years I fought with Luis Herrera, and that man is an intelligent man. He knew the documents I were asking for were disclosable under the Sunshine Ordinance, the California Public Records Act. They have fought me repeatedly over public comment. I have at least 8 orders of determination finding them in violation of the law because they didn't like what I say. And I think you can understand it because I'm pretty clear. But I'll say one thing for me that I can't say for a lot of people on a lot of boards and commissions here. I'll look you in the eye and say to your face anything, and I wouldn't say it behind your back. But my impression is you all sit there and listen, and any comments you have to make, you wait till we're gone or the meeting's over to make them.
Item number 8, hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Any comment on that? Nope. Okay. All right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Didn't make it.